Imagine a ship where every species learns side by side under one sky. Then picture one girl, crystal-skinned, locked in a cold basement, forced to eat alone while laughter echoed above, until one human heard the silence and broke the door down. That moment sparked a chain of courage, rebellion, and light that would change their world forever. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Before we begin, drop a quick hello in the comments and tell us where you are watching from. It helps the channel a lot, and it also lets us see our little constellation of listeners across the world. The cafeteria on the Coalition flagship Horizons Trust sounded like 100 tiny festivals happening at once. Plates clicked, languages braided together, and the ceiling lights shimmered like a false sky. Near the far wall, a metal service door hid a narrow stairwell. Down those steps was a storage level that had been repurposed, at least during mealtimes, into a private eating space for one. Kira rested at a lonely table with a tray of smooth blue-green nutrient mix. She was Prismari. Her skin held tiny lattices that caught the light and scattered it into faint rainbows on the concrete. She was still new to the academy and the youngest of her kind aboard the ship. Rules said the Coalition welcomed all species. Habit said something else. The door above was locked from the outside for her comfort, according to the notice. The explanation people used was polite and neat. Prismari ate by softening a small part of their outer layer and letting nutrients pass through a gentle membrane. Onlookers sometimes felt uneasy. Rather than talk to her, the staff had chosen a simple solution: separate the sight from the crowd, hide the difference, let the lock do the work. Kira watched the steam drift from the bowl and pressed her thumb to the edge. Her skin there began to glow faintly as the crystal pattern loosened to a calm, gel-like sheen. It never hurt. It never harmed anyone. Still, the door stayed shut. Footsteps sounded on the stairs above. Then came a heavy rattle of hinges and a sharp thud that echoed around the small room. The lock did not click. It snapped. The door hung crooked, one screw skipping across the floor like a coin. A human stood in the doorway, breathing fast, hands red where metal had bit his palms. He was a junior cadet with a simple black band on his sleeve. His name tag read Oren Vale. He looked from the tray to the single chair to the bolt on the floor. "This is not okay," he said, voice low but steady, like he was keeping himself from shouting. "Who did this to you?" Kira's translator implant turned her crystal soft tone into standard speech. "The arrangement was made for me. It is called privacy." Oren stepped in and gently tested the door with his shoulder. It wobbled without power now, a useless slab. "Privacy is a door you control," he said. "This is a door you don't." He pulled the other chair to her table and sat, not as a guard and not as a rescuer, but as someone deciding to be there. Kira had studied humans in culture class. She knew they were new in Coalition terms, a species famous for curiosity and for making small tools into big changes. She had not learned how loud their care could feel. "I do not wish to cause trouble," she said. It was true. She wanted to pass exams, send messages home, and learn the names of far suns. "Sometimes," Oren said, "not causing trouble just causes more of this." He pointed to the dim room, then to the dented door. "I'm sorry. I should have asked first before I pushed it open. But it was locked. It shouldn't have been." The blue-green steam thinned. Kira hesitated, then allowed her palm to turn translucent again. A small ripple moved through the softened crystal as it prepared to draw food. She paused and looked at him. "If we go upstairs, some will stare. Then they'll learn," he said. "That's what a school is for." The word struck a chord in her. Prismari used the word togetherness to speak of their global crystal networks at home. This felt like a smaller, sharper version of that, close enough to touch. Oren stood and offered his hand. She studied the strange softness of human skin, the warm pressure of fingertips. When she placed her cool crystal palm in his, a quick burst of sensory notes swept her. Heat, pulse, quiet strength. The room felt less narrow. They climbed the stairs. Each step made a tiny, bright sound under her crystal heels, and her nerves answered with brief flashes of light beneath her skin. At the top, the cafeteria waited, a bright river of conversation. Oren slowed and looked at her. "We can turn back," he said. This is your choice. Kira took a long breath. She preferred decisions formed by calm group thinking, like her people did. But sometimes a single small yes had to start the circle. Let's go, she said. Oren pushed the door open. The noise of the room rolled toward them and then pulled back a little as heads turned. The nearest tables went quiet first, then the quiet spread. A staff member with folded arms hurried over. Another stood up from the far table where teachers sat. Eyes shifted from the broken service door to Kira's shimmering crest to Oren's stubborn, careful stance. Cadet Vale, said Vice Principal Torvik, voice clipped. Cadet Kira has a designated eating area. She has a seat, Oren said, and it's here. His tone was respectful, but it held a clear line in it, like chalk across a floor. Kira felt the room press in. She did not want to be a spectacle. She also did not want to go back downstairs. She lifted her hand, crystal brightening like a small dawn. I can show, she said softly, and you can ask. The principal, Ines Sull, had been watching from near the dispensers. Unlike Torvik, his face showed curiosity more than anger. He stepped closer and nodded once. Let us learn, he said simply. Oren squeezed Kira's fingers, then let go so she could stand on her own. He moved aside, not as a shield now, but as a friend clearing space. And there, in the middle of a quiet circle of many species, Kira prepared to eat. The hook, as storytellers like to say, was in place. A locked door broken, a rule questioned, and a promise that this moment would not be the last. Kira stood by an open table. Oren fetched a warm bowl of nutrient mix and set it down like it mattered. The steam rose again, this time curling in the bright cafeteria air. If anyone wishes to see, Kira said, it is simple. The translator softened her voice into clear words. But anyone close could also hear the faint music of her natural tones. Small glass bells in a breeze. She lifted her palm over the bowl. The outer layer of crystal shifted and softened. It was not melting. It was changing shape, the same way a flower might open before morning. A soft gel-like surface appeared, clear as dew. My kind absorbs through the skin, she said. Our bodies filter what is needed. Nothing is thrown or spilled. It is quiet. It is clean. Someone near the front leaned in, eyes wide. Another cadet, feathered and bright, whispered, Does it hurt? Kira shook her head. No pain. She searched for a human comparison to make it simple. It feels like drinking with your hand, she said, and the cup is inside. She lowered her palm. The surface of the nutrient mix rose to meet her hand, drawn by the soft membrane. The color shifted as the food moved upward, and a faint glow pulsed beneath her skin as the energy traveled through her lattice. There was no disgust on the faces close by, only fascination. Questions came layered and kind. How long did it take? Did different mixes feel different? Did Prismari sense taste or only texture and warmth? Kira answered each one with patience. Her crest flickered now and then as her emotions moved through light. Vice Principal Torvik cleared his throat. This display is irregular, he said, though not as tightly as before. Principal Ines Sull replied, So was the locked door. He looked at the watching students. Assumption is a poor teacher. We replace it with understanding. Oren sat down at the same table, making the scene less like a show and more like a shared meal. After a few minutes, chatter returned around the room. A group of small, clever-handed cadets gathered, asking about Prismari childhood games. Two tall students from the plains world of Tava asked if Kira's skin ever picked up sunlight and stored it. It did a little. The idea delighted them. When the bowl was empty and a clear residue remained, Kira lifted her hand. The gel-soft area firmed, bright lines knitting back into their neat crystal pattern. She flexed her fingers and the tiny rainbows returned to their edges. Applause rose, gentle at first, then strong enough to feel. Kira did not expect the warmth that spread through her. It was new to be seen and not hidden. It was even newer to be seen and accepted. Torvik looked restless. Rules gave him comfort, and the cafeteria had been his tidy map. Principal Ines Sull stepped to the center of the room with him. We hold unity as a banner, the principal said, but we must also hold it as a practice. Separate dining caused harm. It ends today. Oren glanced at Kira. How do you feel? He asked quietly. Lighter, she said, and also taller, though I am not taller. He smiled at that. The staff shifted quickly to new tasks, placing signs that invited questions, arranging mixed seating, and asking for volunteers to host short culture notes over the next week. A nervous calm moved across the room. It felt like a first day all over again. Later, when the room had returned to its regular rhythm, Kira and Oren found a quiet corner near a window. The starfield outside was a slow river. "Why did you push the door?" Kira asked. She wanted to name the thing that had changed the day. "Because no one else did," Oren said. "I kept thinking someone would speak up. Then I looked around and realized I was someone." He rubbed a raw line on his hand where the hinge had scraped him. "I'm not saying it was the perfect way, but a lock is simple to understand. My people usually choose long steps," Kira said. "We like to gather everyone and move together." She looked toward the far wall where the closed service door had once been. "Today needed a short step." Principal Aeneas Sol walked by with a tablet and paused. "Cadet Kira," he said, "thank you for the lesson." He nodded to Oren. "And thank you for the nudge." Torvek followed slower, carrying a small toolbox for the broken door. He looked at Kira. "I will review procedures," he said, which for him was an apology trying to find its feet. The bell that signaled the end of meal period chimed. Trays clinked into return slots. The room grew lighter as students drifted toward classes. Oren stood. "See you at dinner?" he asked. Kira tilted her head and light danced from her crest to the ceiling. "Yes," she said. The word felt like a stone placed in a growing bridge. She watched him leave, then gathered her things. As she did, she felt something new in her chest. Not a new organ, but a new ease. No one knew yet that by nightfall they would be hiding in a lecture hall, listening to unfamiliar boots in the corridor. No one knew that the lesson of one open table would become the lesson that saved a ship. For now, there was only a hallway of bright posters, a line of cadets swapping jokes, and the quiet promise that lunch would never look the same again. The first alarm was a thin chime that most people ignored. Drills happened often. The second alarm was deeper and carried a message: "Secure zones now." The third was a voice none of them knew, flat and cold through the translator. "This vessel is now under the claim of the Obsidian Collective. Comply and be spared." In the academy wing, lights shifted to an amber wash. Instructors moved the tide of students toward shelter points with calm hands and sharp eyes. Kira felt her outer layer tighten into a more protective pattern. Prismari bodies did that when danger rose. She looked for Oren and found him jogging toward her from the cross corridor, his breath steady, eyes scanning. "Zone C," he said, and reached for her hand only long enough to guide, not to drag. A soft tremor ran through the deck. Distant clatter followed, the sound of tools or weapons meeting bulkhead. It was not like the shows some cadets watched where everything exploded at once. It was slower, stranger, like ice forming on a window in lines you could not predict. An instructor named Sci-Fi waved them into a large lecture hall and sealed the doors. Shutters folded down over viewing panels. The room filled with whispers and the thin squeak of shoes on steps as people took cover behind rows of seats. Sci-Fi spoke in a voice made for hard days. "We are safe here for now. Stay low and stay quiet." Oren crouched with Kira behind a desk that had a built-in screen. He took one long look at the doors, then at the vents, then at the ceiling joists. It was the sort of look that turned a room into a map. "You've done this before," Kira said quietly. "Not this," he answered. "But enough to keep my head." He paused. "We also might need a plan." There was a noise at the main door like heavy knuckles against a drum. The metal shuddered. A small cadet near the front whimpered. A friend put an arm around them. Sci-Fi drew a standard issue disruptor and set her shoulders. The door bent inward. Through the gap, 3 figures slid into view, wearing dark plates that reflected red alarm light. Their helmets had a raised line at the back, a narrow ridge like a thorn. The first one scanned the room with a column of violet light. "Life signs clustered," said the translator. "Move them?" Oren's eyes fixed on that raised ridge. "Kira," he whispered. "See the spike at the neck? That's not decoration. Might be their signal path." The leading invader aimed toward Sci-Fi's position. Sci-Fi fired first. Blue energy fluttered across the armor and faded. The invader stumbled but did not fall. "Strong plates," Oren said. Soft back. The invaders began to herd cadets into groups with flat gestures. One walked toward Kira and Oren. The room smelled of hot metal and fear, but also of someone's sweet tea spilled in the rush. Small details rooted the mind. Out, the invader ordered and lifted a stunner. Oren rose slowly, putting himself between the invader and Kira. He lifted empty hands. "We don't want trouble," he said. His voice held no shake. The invader leaned closer. In that small movement, the raised neck ridge came near. Oren moved at that same moment. No flourish, no dramatic cry, just a calm, fast reach. His fingers closed around the ridge and twisted. A spark snapped. The armor stuttered as if the invader had simply forgotten what to do with their legs. They dropped with a thud that shook the seat row. "Spine," Oren said louder now. "Aim for the spine." The words unlocked the room. Students with quick hands pulled at ridges when invaders leaned down. Others used tossed books as distractions to make the helmets dip. A pair of climbers from the ceiling rails dropped like quiet cats and struck the weak point with a metal pointer. Sci-Fi aimed for the gap and fired. This time, the stun sent an invader fully down. The fight was short and odd, like a storm that decided to turn a different way. When it was done, the lecture hall felt too small for the number of beating hearts inside. Kira held onto the edge of the desk until her hand stopped shaking. "We need to warn the ship," Sci-Fi said, voice hoarse. "Comms are jammed." Oren looked at Kira, the kind of look that is both question and trust. "Your people carry light," he said. "Can you send a message through the power lines?" Kira had never done that. Prismari resonance at home flowed through vast crystal forests and neat conduits grown over centuries. The ship had metal veins, not crystal branches. "I can try," she said, "if we reach the power hub. It will take more energy than I have. It could be unkind to my body. We'll make it brief," Oren said. "Just enough to say the one thing everyone needs." He turned to the room. "We move in a circle around Kira. We do not leave anyone. We head for engineering." Hands lifted, yes. Feet shuffled into positions. 2 strong cadets prepared to carry anyone who fainted. A pair of fast runners went to scout ahead through a service duct. Sci-Fi took the rear to guard the line. The group moved through the academy wing like a school of fish, bending around corners, pausing at intersections. Twice they slipped into side rooms as patrols passed. Once they had to cross a gap where a ceiling panel lay broken on the floor, and the line made a little bridge of arms. Engineering smelled like clean ozone. The power distribution node pulsed with a soft blue light, steady as ocean breath. A Felleran apprentice who had hidden under a console popped up, eyes bright with sudden hope. "I can open a conduit," they said, hands already flying over controls. "But it will trip alarms." "We are past quiet," Sci-Fi said. The apprentice exposed a section of the main line. It shone like a river cut in half. Kira felt the thrum of it before she touched it. She thought of the open table in the cafeteria and the eyes that had watched with curiosity, not fear. Courage sometimes borrowed form from yesterday. "Short and clear," Oren said. "Say the weakness." "That's all." Kira placed both hands on the conduit. Light poured through her like sound through a bell. It was not gentle. It was not cruel either. It was simply vast. She shaped it with care, the way a singer breathes to hold a note. "Target the neck," she whispered, and the grid carried it. "Break the spine ridge." She repeated the message in pulses, letting the ship learn its new language. The alarms finally found them. Footsteps rang in the hall beyond. Kira's vision narrowed to a bright tunnel as she sent the last pulse. Something inside her trembled like thin glass in wind. Then Oren's hands were on her shoulders, firm and kind. "That's enough," he said and guided her away. The power let go. Darkness pressed in. She folded into his arms, light dimming to a safe glow. In other parts of the ship, defenders looked at each other as lights along the walls flicked in a repeating pattern. Someone said, "Yeah, does that look like code?" Someone else tried a ridge grip and watched an invader fall limp. A murmur moved through the decks. Messages do not need words when bodies understand. The storm did not stop that minute, but it began to turn. On the floor of engineering, Kira slept like stone that had carried lightning. Around her, friends kept watch. When Kira woke, she heard the soft hum of the medical bay and smelled the faint, clean air of healing machines. The first face she saw was Oren's. His eyes were tired in that kind way that means a person stayed when staying was the hard choice. "You came back," she said. Voice a little rough. "Never left," he answered, and the simple truth of it steadied her. A medic checked her readings and nodded. Your lattice is stable, they said. Overworked but strong. Kira flexed her fingers and watched the rainbows return to their edges. It felt like the first clear morning after a week of fog. Principal Ineas Sull visited with a quiet smile and a thank you that did not try to make the day into a tale of glory. Your message traveled through every rung of this ship, he said. The officers knew where to press. The cadets knew what to try. The invaders did not expect to be taught a lesson by a light they could not see. Oren asked the number everyone feared to ask. The principal gave it with respect and with space for grief. There had been loss. There had also been a ship saved. 1,000 lives moved out of harm. He did not add balance to the numbers. He just set them down and let them be. Back on the command deck, engineers gathered around a display that looked like a star map of wires. They traced the route Kira's pulse had taken through the grid. An older technician tapped a section and said, "We could grow a thin crystal path here, a relay line, not as strong as a prismary forest, but enough to carry a whisper even when the main channels are cut." They called it the Prism Link. The name stuck. A day later, the Academy made its announcement. No more separate dining based on habit or fear. Instead, a new program would run at the start of each term. Gentle demonstrations, question circles, and small projects that mixed species into teams on purpose. Vice Principal Torvek read the memo in the cafeteria, cleared his throat, and then added, "I am sorry for the harm caused." The room did not cheer or jeer. It simply held the words, and in holding them, made them true. Kira and Oren returned to their regular classes in a world that felt adjusted by 1 degree, which is often how real change arrives. They kept their promise to eat together. Their table became a soft center where a person could bring a question and not be laughed at for asking. One evening, after a session with the engineers, Kira and Oren stood by a long window. Ships from the Coalition Response Wing drifted like patient birds near the horizon's trust, escorting her toward a safe port for repairs. The stars did not care about local news, and somehow that made the news feel larger. "They want you to consult on the Prism Link," Oren said, "and they asked me to brief security on the ridge weakness." He said it like facts, not like trophies. "We will help," Kira said. "Then we will go to class the next morning and take notes like everyone else." They laughed, soft and real. It felt good to hold on to the normal parts while the big parts moved. A few days later, in the cafeteria, a small group of first years approached Kira with a tray and nervous smiles. "Can we sit here?" one asked. "We have a team project for the empathy workshop. We need a prismari, a human, and someone with wings. We have the wings." They pointed to their friend who gave a tiny flutter. Kira looked at Oren, who was already sliding along the bench to make room. That night, Kira thought about doors, not the dramatic kind that crash down, though that has its own honest place in a story. She thought about the everyday doors that swing on quiet hinges, the ones that stay open because people decided they should stay open. When the Academy held a small gathering to mark the start of the Prism Link project, Principal Ineas Sull spoke for less than a minute. "We learned," he said. "We changed. That was all." Then he handed the floor to the apprentices and cadets who would build the first relay. Later, Vice Principal Torvek found Kira by the water station. He held a thin, repaired hinge in his hand. "A reminder," he said, "for my desk." She nodded. "For mine too," she said, and meant not an object but a memory she intended to keep polished. The next week, the ship resumed its gentle routine. Cleaning drones hummed. Study groups argued about equations and then laughed about snacks. Shields gleamed along the hull like a second skin. Kira and Oren met at their usual spot for dinner. A few friends joined, then a few more. A quiet wave of talk spread out from the table like ripples from a small stone. At one point, a younger cadet asked Kira, "Were you scared in engineering?" Kira answered with honesty. "Yes," she said. "Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is choosing a good action while your hands still shake." Oren lifted his cup. "To good actions," he said. "To open doors," Kira added. The group echoed the words. It was not a shout. It did not need to be. Sometimes a promise is stronger when spoken like a seed planted in good soil. As the camera of our story pulls back, we see the horizon's trust moving through a field of patient stars, her course steady. Deep inside, A thin new crystal line grows along a conduit, ready to carry a whisper when noise tries to drown the truth. A Prismary student and a human cadet walk side by side toward evening study, not because one saved the other, but because they chose to move through the world together. And in that quiet, steady choice lies the final shape of the tale. Not a single broken lock, but a hallway full of doors that will not be closed again,